Day in the life of a litigation lawyer. You imagine yourself practicing law, going and running from court to court, making amazing arguments which impress not just the judges sitting in front of you, but also the hundreds of lawyers sitting behind you, the general public, in sheer awe of the amazing lawyer that you are. Well, before you get to the courts, before you're running around, there are a bunch of hurdles to get around. First and foremost, the great city of New Delhi, if you're practicing, before the Supreme Court, the Delhi High Court, and the Delhi District Courts, and the various other tribunals and quasi judicial authorities that are out there, you have to get up in the excruciating Delhi weathers, be it the extremely hot summers, be it the extremely cold winters. The time that I'm shooting this video is extremely cold, and another thing we have to always deal with, of course, perennially, is the Delhi pollution. To give a little context, got my air purifier right there, keeps changing the light from green to red, saying that the room is still has a lot of PM 2.5 particles. Anyway, so you get up if it's extremely hot, you're sweaty when you wake up in the morning, it's extremely cold, so difficult to get out in the morning. Either way, there's almost always a challenge. Whenever I talk to friends who are living in cities like Bangalore or Bombay, so much better. Of course, heat is also an issue in some of these places, but at least this excruciating cold that I'm feeling right now, where I can't even feel my fingers, is something very, very difficult to deal with. And now I have to make this difficult decision to, do something else before I start with my work, or should I just dive into my files? Today is a slightly slower day, a case with not so high consequences is there, and that is why I can even think of making this, video. Otherwise, for me and for all other lawyers I know, mornings, unless you're really, really zen, a monk figure, it's very, very difficult for you to be able to do anything else, because you're just worrying about your file, you're going over your notes again and again. No matter how many months, years, decades it's always like this. If you're prudent, if you're smart, those really smart ones that I know will spend a good half hour, 1 hour, 2 hours in the beginning of the day, having prepared well the night prior, and they will, spend that time doing maybe yoga, meditation, connecting with their loved ones. I, for one, am still one of those lunatics who still worries about the case, keeps going over the details again and again, which is not the best thing. I should be, the night prior, I should be so confident that, that I am thorough with the matter. And of course, because of this, see, the air purifier goes up again. So anyways, I keep, if I have to spend the, have to do the preparation in the night, then I spend well into the night preparing for my matter. I barely get up in time, and then I have to just rush to court. So either which ways, especially, you can't really help it, because a lot of times the client is new, they have come to you at the very last moment, or there is a new situation which has emerged, because of which there is always some crisis or the other going on, which has kind of become which has become kind of ingrained, this crisis lifestyle. Having said that, it's not so bad. You do get to effect a lot of change. You can work more passionately towards the things, the causes that you are passionate about, which you cannot be said for a lot of other places. So overall, I'm quite happy. Anyway, so now we get ready, and then we head out to the courts. One thing to note is that we never, almost never, whenever we've got court, which usually starts at 10 or 10:30, we don't go to the office first, settle in, and then proceed to the court. If we have a matter at 10:30 in the morning, we, almost all litigation lawyers, always prefer to first head out to the court complex, do their matters, and then get back to work, which is, funny, because this one time I was talking with this friend who back then was in the litigation team of one of the top law firms in the country, and he told me that as a litigation lawyer in a law firm, the corporate fellows would come and maybe say 10 a.m. and leave by 5 or 6 or 7 a.m. 7 p.m. And the litigation lawyers would spend their times from 10 or 10:30 a.m. in the courts. So they, of course, they leave their houses by 8, 9, or whatever time it takes to reach the court. And then they would spend the 6, 7 hours at the court, get free by around 4:30, and then they would proceed to office, where they would then start with the drafting, research, filing work for the day, and would therefore be working in the law firm on a good day till about 11 or 12, 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. And on bad days, the work would go on up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m. I remember I was in law school, final year of law school. He called me up at around 9 a.m. in the morning and said, and asked me what I'm doing. And I told him I'm driving to the college. And I asked him what he's doing. I asked him whether he's about to start his day. He said, I just stepped out of my firm and I'm heading back to my house, going to take a quick shower, grab a quick breakfast, maybe sleep for an hour or two, and I have to be back at the court at around 11 or 11:30 a.m. That's the kind of life that some of these people live. No wonder that he left not just the firm but even the profession and switched professions. He's really happy doing something more creative and a little more, perhaps in his own ways, fulfilling work with his own life. Anyways, that was a little side story. We head out. I'm going to show you a couple of neat more things as well. So I've kept the stuff in the car and warming up the car and proceeding to the courts. In the great city of New Delhi, if you start your practice, there are all sorts of places where you can stay. A huge favorite among litigating lawyers starting out with the practice from other cities is Jungpura, because it is very, very near to India Gate and quite affordable in several areas as well, because of the fact that it's got very, very expensive houses, but it's also got those small houses on the side, old constructions, which are very, very cheap compared to Delhi standards. Maybe you'll get a room for perhaps 8,000, 10,000. I know friends who've done it at 10. I know friends who've pulled it off at 20, 25. More decent places come to around 30, 35,000 a month, which of course in most situations would not cover your rent. Anyways, Jungpura is very close to India Gate, which has Patiala House Courts, the Delhi High Court, and also the Supreme Court of India right behind the Patiala House Court. In fact, you will get a glimpse of a couple of these courts today while I'm doing this, because, we have a matter at Patiala House Court and then we proceed to my chamber at the Delhi High Court. So I'll give you a little bit of glimpse of that. Stuck in some traffic as well. And that is why you have to kind of take into account the traffic as well. And so yesterday there were a lot of jams because of the protests going on right now, and that's why I decided to leave a little earlier. Usually from my residence office it takes about 15 or so minutes in the morning to reach India Gate. Today I factored that in and I left around 15 minutes early. Let's see. Reached Patiala House Court a full 12 minutes in advance, and I've been telling myself since the past 7 years that being half an hour or 1 hour earlier to court is far better than being just 1 or 2 minutes late, because I learned this lesson almost in the first 3 months of my practice itself. This music, the song is No Time for Caution in the background, which from one of my favorite movies, Interstellar. Anyways, coming back to the story, I got a matter from a reference in the Supreme Court on a very, very interesting question of law. I went to the Supreme Court. The court said that this present issue is pending before a 5-judge bench of the court, and before that judgment is passed, we are not going to interfere with the situation. So they adjourned the matter to a specific date, and I remember, as luck would have it, it was so lucky for me that on the date of just one day before the date of my hearing, the 5-judge bench rules in favor of the legal proposition that I needed for my client. So I am so happy. I write a blog post about it, about how today the Supreme Court passed this in my favor, and now I am going to court and going to show the 2-judge bench that yes, this is something that I am going to, I'm going to win this now. It's just a legal proposition that I'm going to win. Instead, and this is a very valuable lesson, another valuable lesson that I learned, that even if you do have a good case on the merits, you can still mess it up in several ways. I reached the Supreme Court. If for those who don't know, there is an entry pass system where if you do not have an entry pass, which you have to get after several days of efforts going back and forth again and again, not your advocate's card, but an entry card which you swipe and then they grant you access into the system. The doors only open once you swipe that card. So in this particular situation, what happened was that I had not gotten that card till then, because it's just been 2-3 months into the profession. I don't think I had even argued any matter before the Supreme Court till that time. Someone reposed enough faith in me to hire me as an advocate because they did not have a lot of budget. And so they went for the junior lawyer who did try his best. But here's the thing. I got into the line to get that, entry pass for the day to be made. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes. That day it took about 30 minutes. I said, no matter, I'm still well in time. But by the time I reach inside the courtroom, because even when you get that card made, when you swipe it, when you enter, you have to walk a good 100 meters inside, and then you have to walk a good anywhere between, if it's the Chief Justice Court, it's right there. But if it's any other court, you have to walk you have to walk anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes to get to the courtroom. And in this particular situation, I remember I walked to the courtroom. It was 10:32, and when I walked in, my item had just passed, and I did not know what happened in the matter. And I sat there, thumbs twiddling. If I know now if I knew back then what I know now, I would have still jumped in, mentioned the matter to the judges and asked for forgiveness, and would have said that I'm here to argue the matter. If the judges would have adjourned, they would have adjourned. So after waiting for about 1.5 hours, waiting for about 2.5 hours, I finally mustered the courage when the judges went off for lunch. I asked the courtmaster what happened in this particular matter. The courtmaster said because there was nobody from the respondent side, that was me, the matter was adjourned to another date 2 months from then. And I thought to myself, it's all right, it's a little embarrassing. That glorious moment of victory was not mine that day, but at least the next time I will still have a shot, and it's not a big deal. However, this is the lesson that I learned. This is the second lesson I learned that day, at least from this matter, not that day, because about 1 month later, I got an advance copy of an application filed by the other side, in which they said that because the matter has now been settled, this matter may be disposed of. And I did not understand. So I called up my client who had hired me. They had forgotten to tell me that because they saw so much time transpire in the matter of the murder of their son, and they did not see any justice happening anytime soon, when the other side approached them with some offer of some money, some bribe, they accepted it, and they went to court and they testified in favor of the accused persons who had then come to the Supreme Court. The meaning of this is I lost an otherwise incredibly good case for the client, and I beat myself up to this day thinking that if I was there in time, I could have gotten their petition dismissed. The police would have arrested the accused persons there and then in all probability my client, the family of the deceased person, might not have settled the matter, and would have at least felt a small semblance of justice in this situation. I do not want to repeat what happened back then and has sometimes, for no fault of mine, happened again. So I will now switch this off and proceed to the Patiala House Court, where I have my matter today right there. Patiala House Courts is one of my favorite district courts to come to because this is where I mostly started my practice. My first senior, my main mentor, has his chamber over here, and I've learned a lot in this place running around these corridors. Of course, I used to run around everywhere, but with the chamber being here, there's a certain feel of this place being home. Done with the matter. We've got Sahil Ahuja, doing the photocopying, inspection of court records, a bunch of other things. I just love this place to death. I had a matter before the CMM Patiala House, the Chief Metropolitan Magistrate Patiala House Court, and that's one of the courts where we had most of our matters representing various government departments in their conflict with the average citizen.
सर मेरे को 2 मिनट दीजिए। हाँ जी हेलो।
As I was talking about in the video in the car, two of these gentlemen showed up just 2 minutes late. Now they drove from their houses, I think perhaps around, took them an hour and a half to drive from their houses, and then it took them, I think, extra 5 minutes to find a parking spot and then to find the courtroom, because of which 2 minutes late. Now imagine if they were the ones who had to argue the matter, and then the client reads the order sheet and which says none for the complainant in the matter. How embarrassing would that be for the lawyer, for the client? If the matter is dismissed, that's another issue. And of course it's all right. I mean, first year lawyers, just like a few months into their graduation, and they'll also watch the video in which I talk about how I suffered the consequences at a much grander scale, because of which I learned my lessons, and on most days I do appear a little earlier than, or in fact sometimes a lot earlier than just being a minute or two late. Okay, now, so done with the matter for the day. I had another matter in the Noida courts, but one reason or the other they always adjourn the matters. So I thought today to myself, because of the protests and everything, let's take an adjournment ourselves. Let's not put the client at a lot of peril, ourselves at a lot of peril for no reason, because in all probability Noida courts, the great courts that they are, will in all probability adjourn the matter for one reason or the other, even if we show up as well. This one time I drove to Noida court, showed up, the entire court premises was locked down because one lawyer's wife had passed away. So there was a condolence meeting. They call it condolence. And so done with the matters, trying to get my car out of the parking, which is a huge feat in itself, because of the fact that it's another one of the small nuances you need to know. If you have a car, you're practicing law, if you have to rush from one matter to the other, your car will be stuck if you don't park it in the right way. I knew I had some time, that's why I parked it inside, so so that even if it takes some time, it doesn't really matter. Having said all of that, I am technically free for the day. I can do whatever I want. A lot of lawyers go and chill in their chamber, go watch some proceedings. We've got some limitations on that now because of the fact that we have very limited physical access, at least in the High Court and the Supreme Court. And but yeah, there are also lawyers that I know who go and get drunk in the middle of the day because matters are over. You can do whatever you want. Me, I think I will head to the High Court chamber, show you a little bit more of that. Keep this video going on, and then perhaps proceed to whatever other plans I can conjure up for a Tuesday morning. The Delhi High Court chambers. Hello. Hello, everybody. Matter none of my juniors are there because High Court में वो पटियाला हाउस में एक मैटर था. अच्छा. तो वहाँ पे करके सब निकले हैं. What are you doing? Mr. Abhinav Singh, Mr. Virender Vashisht, doing a little vlog kind of a thing. Show what happens in the life of a lawyer. फिर जब वकील के सारे मैटर खत्म हो जाते हैं, then he sits in his chamber, twiddles his thumbs, just like these two gentlemen over here, and this third gentleman over here. Then we make plans to go to all the nice places around the city where we will sit and talk about our problems in our married lives, talk about the problems with our wives, and how horrible it is to go back home and face them. The jokes apart, we sit, we prepare for the files for tomorrow. We start panicking in the middle of the day about what all we have to do for the matters tomorrow and day after tomorrow, and what else needs to be done. Prepare the file, discuss with the client, coordinate with your associates, stuff like that.